Good afternoon. I hope everyone's well today. Thank you for watching. I wanted to talk a little bit about the narrative around the Southport atrocity last year and the fallout that followed. Now, I think we can all remember Tutik here going on the TV saying that the outrage and the civil unrest that stemmed from the attack on those girls in Southport was nothing to do with each other. They were completely separate. The outrage, the righteous outrage of the local communities in the northwest was nothing to do with the actual attack on those little girls in the community centre. The Prime Minister went on the television and he put out a speech. I'm going to play a short clip to give you a bit of context to refresh your memory.
Because in the aftermath of this attack, the community of Southport had to suffer twice. A gang of thugs got on trains and buses, went to a community that is not their own, a community grieving the most horrific tragedy, and then proceeded to throw bricks at police officers who just 24 hours earlier had been having to deal with an attack on children in their community.
Well, that's enough from you. None of that happened. There was nobody bussed in from outside the local areas. There may have been people from further afield in the northwest. They were not organised and they were not bussed in. And it didn't start as a riot. It escalated. And the official report from the Constabulary Inspectorate that came out 5 months after the atrocity in Southport said all of this. It says there was no organised people travelling, and it says that there were locals, and it was civil unrest. They specifically, in their report, which is the official report, they've gone on record and they said it wasn't a riot, it was civil unrest. So not only was the Prime Minister proven to be a liar, spinning a yarn, feeding you a narrative, he also didn't retract, and he didn't actually pull out a clarification or apology when that report came out earlier this year. These things are very, very important, and we're going to get into why in a minute or two. GB News had it's not news to me. I've known this for a while, but the legacy media is catching up. When you get all of these people, and they go all over the country, the Hope Not Hate Stand Up to Racism crowds, and they've all got matching placards. Well, who's funding all of this? Where's all the money coming from? It's non-government organisations like Care for Calais, Hope Not Hate, and Stand Up to Racism. All of these are what's known as non-government organisations, NGOs. They're arm's length, so that gives the government plausible deniability. What they can do is they can wash their hands of it, and they can say it's not our problem, we didn't have anything to do with it, they did it. That's very important, and I'm going to play the clip now that was on from GB News yesterday where they've exposed this. I've known for quite some time, and it's pretty obvious that these people are always bussed in from outside of the area, and it's always obvious that that's their intent. So I'm going to play this now. It's quite a long clip, but I'll pause it.
What's new there?
Oh, of course.
On a serious note, shocking footage recorded in Epping Forest has laid bare the truth about these far-left agitators, and I genuinely mean this. I think it's going to shock you.
Won't shock me, I've known this for about a year, but continue. It's good that you've caught up.
Epping Forest has turned into a war zone this week, and in my opinion, there are serious questions about these far-left agitators who keep showing up at every protest, escalating tensions, and then, miraculously, they just disappear, don't they? Well, after reports of multiple alleged sexual assaults by a newly arrived migrant, who denies the allegation, of course, local residents gathered to rightfully and peacefully protest their outrage at an illegal migrant hotel in Epping Forest in Essex. Sadly, the protest turned violent, and let's be clear, that does nothing to change minds. It only fuels those looking to cause chaos, and I strongly condemn violence, and anyone who genuinely does care about this matter should do the same.
I completely agree. Go out, protest, make your feelings known, be heard, don't get violent. That is exactly what the state wants. They are not on your side, not the local policeman who says he's your friend. He is not on your side. He's there to collect a paycheck, he's there to do their job.
But the big question I want to ask is this. Who are these so-called anti-fascists? Where are they coming from? Who funds them? And why are they allowed to constantly and consistently agitate and inflame tensions where others have been previously stopped or banned?
I say my trade union, or my former trade union, is one of the sources of funding. So if you're in a trade union, get out of it. That is my opinion. If you don't want to be funding this nonsense, that's one way you can cut the funding.
Well, what do you make of this footage?
Boss, are we filling up? If these are locals, why are they getting in a police car? Why are they getting in police cars? Why don't they just go over if they're local?
Proof undeniable. They're getting bussed out by the police, so we're paying for our own counter-protesters. We're paying for it ourselves. We go out if there's an atrocity in our area to make our feelings known, and then the state-sanctioned counter-protesters come in to paint the picture that you're the bad guy, you're in the wrong because you want a safe community for your kids and sisters and daughters and yourself.
Yeah, for those of you listening, this footage shows refugees welcome here groups being escorted back to a train station in police vans. So let me ask the obvious question. Why would you bus people back to the train station if they're locals?
Because the most important thing you need to remember is that because the liberal elites are liberal, they are on the left. So anybody that is in their worldview and inside the system that's grown up since 1997 is protected. That is why if you are doing a Stand Up to Racism protest, a Black Lives Matter protest, a Refugees Welcome protest, you're protected. You're treated with the kid gloves. If you're coming from outside of the narrative, outside of the agenda, outside the Blairite project that was set up in 1997, you'll get the full force of the law thrown at you. That is why we get predators out of prison within a year, and you get people who said a bad thing or maybe a questionable tweet online, and they get over 2 years, or over 2.5 years. It's all by design. These people are bussed in. They are funded by these non-government organisations and trade unions, and their goal is to preserve the Blairite project. Now, of course, this is just my view. Your opinion may vary. Think about it. Do the adding up. Do the maths. Pull it all together. This is the only conclusion that you can come to.
The answer is rather obvious, isn't it? They aren't locals. They never are. These are hard-left activists who don't live in these communities. They're brought in like a travelling circus from protest to protest, and every time local people dare to speak out or rightfully protest what's happening in their communities, they show up.
That's exactly right. So when the Prime Minister goes on TV saying that the far-right agitators were bussed in, they've just changed the word left to right. The far left agitators are always bussed in because they are state sanctioned and they are state funded.
And yet, instead of being treated like a public order risk, like we've seen with the EDL marches or right-wing protests, they're effectively given first-class travel by our police, funded by you, the taxpayer, of course. Well, we reached out to Essex Police, who said this. There was a flashpoint during the protest, and when counter-protesters began to dissipate, they were escorted to the train station. This was to ensure they left the area and prevent additional violence. Why? Why do we have to ferry them back home? Is it because they aren't local? And who organises them? Who pays for this? And more importantly, why do the police leadership seem to think it's appropriate to treat them like guests and give them a free lift home at the expense of you, the taxpayer? It makes my blood boil. And let's be clear, Epping Forest is a peaceful, law-abiding community with crime well below the national average. But now it's being dragged into chaos, not by locals, but by outsiders, and failed policies of successive governments keep enabling it. We need action. Deport every single person who entered this country illegally, investigate who funds and organises these far-left activist caravans.
You don't need to investigate it, it's all state-funded. These non-government organisations are funded by me and you, the taxpayer. They organise all of this. It is the blob, it is what the Americans would refer to as the deep state, the permanent bureaucracy that are there, regardless of the stripe of government that's in, red or blue, whatever team is in, they are there to preserve the liberal order. That is their only goal. And if you're outside of that window, that's when the state will come for you.
And stop the police from acting like a taxi service for professional agitators. That is what I want a tough government to do. Let's bring it into my panel here. Will, these people show up everywhere. And I think what this footage proves to me is that they aren't locals. And they seem to care about local matters. Why on earth should they be going to events that rightfully local communities are protesting against a severe thing like alleged sexual assault?
Well, Alex, you say that they show up everywhere. They certainly don't show up on any of the other news stations. I think that's why this is a really important piece of journalism.
That's right, they don't show up on the mainstream or the legacy media like BBC and Channel 4. Channel 4 are rewriting the Southport atrocity, which I'll get to in a minute or two.
That you've done, because there is a narrative which is that the far right are evil, the far right are racist, bigots, creating violence and all that sort of stuff. And you never see the other side. You never see the fact that in so many instances there are coordinated left-wing groups that are trying to basically bait these people into this sort of violence. And look, we've all said, and we will continue to say, that no one condones violence, GB News or on our panel, but at the same time, everyone can understand that people have had enough in this country, and it's certainly not helped by these left-wing lunatics who are just ignoring all of the challenges in these communities.
Renee?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more with what Will said, but I think there's another interesting aspect to this, which as a woman, just like those mothers and grandmothers there protesting because they're worried about their children who are being sexually harassed by these people who come from different cultures with different values regarding women and who are sexually allegedly supporting, assaulting young girls. Whenever we want to speak up about sexual violence against us, these people, this left group, and many of those signs were from people like Socialist Worker, shut us down. As women, we are not allowed to say we feel like we are in danger, and we do. We are in danger.
Yeah, people from Afghan are 20 times more likely to be involved with that type of crime than the indigenous population. And then you'll get people on TV like Jess Phillips saying, well, no, let's not dig any deeper. It's just men. Just men are the problem. Half the species is the problem. Nothing to do with culture, nothing to do with race, nothing to do with anything but whether you've got an X or a Y chromosome. Big brain on Jess Phillips.
Andy, my big problem with this is that, and I really concur with what you're saying there, Renee, people need to be able to protest in order to get things off their chest. And when these groups show up, and I want everyone to have the right to protest in our country, as many people on this panel will know, my views on this are quite clear. However, these groups are not helping the situation by showing up and counter-protesting what seems to be a local community in absolute outrage.
I mean, I think counter-protesting is fine. I think everyone here agrees that, we're all free species here. And I think this kind of idea that they're not from Epping, fine. The left are just better organised than the right. It's we shouldn't be going after the left because they're better at organising counter-protest than the right.
Do you think
I think that misses the point.
Do you think it's disingenuous for them to go and counter-protest what's clearly quite a local protest? Do you think they are agitating the situation?
No, I don't think so. I think, the scenes that we saw earlier in the week where,
It is completely disingenuous. It's completely fake. They've got no connection to the area or community. They just think evil whitey needs to be shut down. They're more concerned with these boat people, these dinghy divers that shouldn't be in the country, than they are about protecting locals in the area that were pushed out of London into Essex.
The community were throwing bricks at someone who was just trying to get to work, a guy that was working at one of these migrant hotels, not a migrant, but someone who was just trying to do his job, do his shift. People are throwing bricks at him. You know, I think it's not unfair for that to gain national traction and for, you know, wider groups outside of Epping to come and counter-protest. No.
Okay, let me bring in Trey. I think that...
I'm going to say, first of all, the mainstream media, Channel 4, ITV, BBC, whoever you want to say, they are very much the issue. They're not there to make your feelings known or heard. They're there to preserve the narrative, just like these far-left lunatics. They are all in it together.
That's the whole reason why I sit here week in, week out, because I can see both sides of the story. I'm very much...
I never heard you say that before.
No, absolutely, right? Because on the one hand, I think some of these groups, like you said, socialist workers, some of the anti-fascist movement, they generally feel that they're on a crusade to stop this country, as far as they're concerned, going towards the right. Then you have people, including the locals, like you say, are trying to protect people locally. But it's finding that balance, because some of the elements of people on the right is provocative. Like you just said, someone going about their business, he's attacked. This attacker is alleged, he hasn't been convicted yet. So it's more broad that some people don't want to see happen.
A young
but
girl
at the
was
same
assaulted,
time,
right?
No, I get it, but still, he hasn't yet been, he's still allegedly. And I think that's the thing. Sometimes it's easy to whip up sentiment without having any balance, and I think that's why those...
Can I just speak to that balance though, Andy? Yeah. That on the one hand you say it's absolutely fine for people to come in and Labour are better organised, the left are better organised at doing it, and yet I really remember vividly that when Southport happened, the big complaint is that people came in from the outside, they were shipped in by the right-wing fascists.
Now I'm going to stop Dr. Renee here, and I like Dr. Renee, but she's fallen into the trap. And this is the trap that you need to be careful of, especially if you're on the right. She's based, she's on our side, she's a good doctor and a good person. She is following government narrative. It's clearly established nobody from outside of the area in Southport was bussed in or ferried in. But she's bought it hook, line and sinker. The truth is one thing, the narrative is the other. This is what I'm pointing out here. The narrative is that the far right are well organised and they're going all around the country. That is not the case. I'm sorry, Dr. Renee, you're wrong on that, but I forgive you because you're on our team and you're a good one.
But that wasn't okay.
Well, I think there's a difference between shipping in to counter-protest and shipping in to riot.
These people were shipped in.
Shipping in to riot and shipping in...
I'm going to call that leftist fuckwit out, alright? The Inspectorate, the constabulary, haven't labelled it as riots. There weren't riots. It was civil unrest, disorder. So we're going to leave that one there. I just wanted to call out the attention that even people on our side, on our team, are falling into the trap. So do not fall into the trap. Do not do that. And now, what they're actually doing now, Channel 4, which is public owned by the way, we are putting out a documentary, and again it's outsourcing, so Channel 4 can say it's not their problem, they're just putting it on TV. But they funded it, or the independent filmmakers funded it, they are presenting it as a documentary, and Channel 4 purchased it and put it on the airwaves. And it's very, very sick, because again, the state narrative, not the fact, not the truth, is what's being pushed to the masses. The state narrative is that the far-right thugs are evil, bigoted racists. That is the state narrative, and they need that to hold. The Southport documentary, One Day in Southport, a message has been sent and circulated to locals, schools, about the Southport recovery team, forewarning parents of the Channel 4 Southport documentary, sarcastic quote marks, 24th of July 2025. The documentary, rather than focus on the systematic failures that led to the Southport murderer being free to roam the streets, he was flagged how many times by Prevent, and nothing happened. And the reason why nothing happened is because he didn't have an ideology, alright? And it's going to be looking at the anti-immigration protests and civil unrest that broke out after the attack happened. The production company, Amos Pictures, have made it abundantly clear that the rioting was totally disconnected from the Welsh Choir Boys attack on the Taylor Swift dance class in Hart Street in July. It is understood that they have recruited lobbyists from Hope Not Hate and Stand Up to Racism to give an account of events. And there you have it. The narrative that the Prime Minister done last year on TV was that the civil unrest had nothing to do with the atrocity in Southport. And then you've got NGOs, Hope Not Hate, Care for Calais, Stand Up to Racism. They are bussed around to counter-protest at these events all over the country. And then you have Channel 4, which is state-owned, and they buy a documentary by the independent filmmakers to push the same narrative. And then they interview the very same NGOs that are bussing people around the country. And they're trying to say that the atrocity, that Welsh choir boy, has nothing to do with why people are so angry and so upset. It's complete BS. You know it is, I know it is. Keep your eyes open. Make sure that the truth doesn't fall into the annals of history. We need to remember those little girls. We need to honour and we need to respect our communities. We are not far right. We are gravely concerned about the direction of the country that is being facilitated at every level by the Blurite states, the managerial class of the non-government organisations, the state media, Channel 4, BBC, and then the politicians, which is why the Prime Minister's on the front of this thumbnail for this video. It is his narrative, it is Labour's narrative, and they need 0 seats at the next election along with the Tories. This needs to end, this needs to stop. Now if you like this video, make me aware, like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Have a good afternoon and thank you for watching. It's appreciated as always. Have a good day.